Hi again, everyone, and welcome to Badger Breakdown, brought to you by U.S. Cellular. I'm Mike Lucas from UWBadgers.com. I'm joined by the voice of the Badgers, Matt Lepay. I'm not sure many people had these two teams, Minnesota and Wisconsin, being the final two standing in the Western Division, with the winner take all and an opportunity to play Ohio State in the Big Ten Championship.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know if anybody would have had Minnesota, and then after the Big Ten opener, I'm not sure how many would have had Wisconsin either, so I guess I wasn't smart enough to figure that out. Credit to both. We've talked about it with the Badgers, and you really have to tip your cap to Minnesota. Jerry Kill, his staff, and the players, what they've been able to do. They understand, I think much like Wisconsin, they understand their limitations, they know where their strengths are, and they maximize one and do a pretty good job of hiding the other. But I think both teams are really, really tough. And you have to be to get through the gauntlet that these two teams have, especially these last few weeks, to get to this game.
I thought we saw signs last year when the Badgers played in Minneapolis that the Gophers are finally ready to stand toe-to-toe and slug it out.
I think, you know, Gary Anderson's talked about it during the week, too, with Jerry Kill, what he's been able to do through the toughness of the players, through recruiting. They have good players. They have guys on defense who can really fly around, create a lot of turnovers. That's been a big, big statistic for Minnesota. And you're right, we saw some signs of that last year in a frigid game up in Minneapolis. Badgers were able to get some separation in the second half. But, you know, sometimes when you call a team tough, it's easy to overlook the fact that there are some pretty good athletes out there. And watching the ESPN broadcast last week here or a couple weeks ago, Dave Pasch was talking about how he was down on the field, he and Brian Greasy, and those players have a little different look now, a little different body type, I think was how they put it, now with these Gopher teams compared to maybe what they had for a few years prior. They're legit, they're good.
I know we both agree that it's going to be a hard-hitting game here Saturday between the Gophers and the Badgers, but still, in all reality, it's going to be tough to top the hard hitting that we saw in Iowa City last Saturday. That was awesome. That was fierce.
It was a classic game. Again, they've had a few of them through the years. We were last week reflecting on the 2010 game down there and the back and forth nature of it. Melvin Gordon took some ferocious hits. A lot of guys took ferocious hits, but clearly they put the bullseye on Melvin, and they popped him multiple times, and Melvin kept getting up, kept going right back at him. You know, for a while, if you're Iowa, you're feeling pretty good about things. Then you look up, Melvin has an 88-yard run. End of the day, he has 200 yards and some really big time plays when the Badgers had to have it.
I think, again, we both agree that he helped himself. Melvin Gordon did, as far as what maybe pro scouts have always been looking at. Can he come out of the backfield and catch the pass, and how effortlessly is he in that process and the mechanics of catching the ball? And boy, he looked like he'd been doing it all his life.
Exactly, and you think of that 3rd and long, the 3rd and 13, where he and Joel Stavy hook up and they check to the play. Melvin slipped out. Joel hits him with a perfect pass, turns into a 35-yard pass play. But you're right. It looks like he's been catching passes out of the backfield his entire career. He had one catch last year. Now he's into over a dozen right now, and he's third leading receiver right now on this team with the number of catches. And again, they were very, very important what he contributed last week.
And we should shift the focus on those receptions to the quarterback, because while Melvin made some nice catches and runs after the catch, it was Stavy who was able to get him the ball under pressure.
Yeah, Iowa was bearing down on him, and we talked about that one play on the 3rd and long. And how about his run as well? That was as big a play as maybe there was in the game on 3rd down and 8. And, you know, he's flushed out of the pocket and he turns it into a play that sealed the game. The Badgers were very good on 3rd down. This is not as good as this team has been offensively. 3rd down has not been a favorable statistic for the Badgers on offense. It was last week. McAvoy had something to do with it, but Joel Stavy had a ton to do with it, especially down the stretch.
We've made mention of it before, how much we like the diamond formation because of the many different options it provides. And in this case, it was Tanner McAvoy with the fake to Melvin Gordon, which drew the defense entirely, including the defensive end who tackled Gordon. The linebackers all swung to that direction of the formation, and McAvoy went right up the middle.
It drew the defense, and it drew about 70,000 people because you could hear the roar of the crowd when the contact was made, and there's Tanner running free for the touchdown. He does a great job of selling it. You know, he's a good ball handler, if you will. We use that term time to time in football. You obviously hear it more in basketball, but Tanner did a great job of selling it and showing his speed. I mean, again, we go back to that whole 2-quarterback system. You know, that old line, if you have two, you have none. That doesn't apply here. They have two, and it works. It works with two. What Joel does with his strengths, what Tanner does with his strengths, credit to both for accepting it, and the players, everybody involved in this offense, from the coordinator down, for making it work.
We all want it nice and easy when it comes to trying to predict what might happen in a football game. Do you give the Badgers the edge because of the home field advantage or not?
Yeah, I think so. You'd rather have a big game. What does Barry Alvarez, what would he always say? I love the big game, especially when they're home. I don't, you know, Gary Anderson and Barry are similar in some ways, different in others, but I think Gary was very happy to be back here at Camp Randall, especially when you think of that atmosphere a couple of weeks ago in the game against Nebraska. That it was electric, and we all know it was pretty close to a perfect day for the Badgers. Well, you know, maybe history can repeat itself. Not record-breaking runs, I'm not counting on that necessarily, but just the energy is where I'm coming from here. The energy of a crowd, rivalry game, most played rivalry in major college football, and this time it's really high stakes. Biggest game in the Big Ten, one of the bigger games nationally going on.
One step away from a date with Ohio State.
And one step away from what would be a third Big Ten title appearance in the 4 years of that game's existence, which says a lot about Wisconsin. And whoever wins this is going to earn it. When you look at who Minnesota has had to play down the stretch, where they've just blitzed Iowa at home. They go down to the wire with Ohio State. They didn't play their best game, but they made that a one-score game. And they come from behind against Nebraska without David Cobb, an outstanding running back who did not play much of that second half. And we know the Badgers haven't won 6 in a row. Blitzing a Nebraska team here a couple of weeks ago. Great game with Iowa, and now Minnesota. The way that schedule lays out, whoever wins it truly earns it.
For Matt Lepay, I'm Mike Lucas. Thanks for watching Badger Breakdown, brought to you by U.S. Cellular.